everyone, it is Michael with Offshore Citizen. We are here in Bulgaria today. I'm going to talk not about Bulgaria, but about Vanuatu. I would love to have talked about it when I was there, but I have no plans on going there for the next, I don't know, maybe the next year or so. So anyway, we're talking about citizenship by investment. I mean, we could talk about Vanuatu in general in another video, but for today, we're going to talk about their citizenship by investment program, which is fairly interesting. So to start off with, you could recognize that Vanuatu's program has been arguably kind of poorly marketed. And part of the reason for that is that they used to have an old program, and their old program was a disaster. It didn't work very well, people didn't get it, etc. They created a new program in 2017, and that program is much better, much more competitive. And we're going to talk today about, why it is that it might be a useful program for some people. So first of all, let's just give you like Cole's notes of what I would call as the main selling feature of Vanuatu, which is probably the fastest passport program out there, possibly including the unofficial ones. So most of the unofficial programs are kind of like 3 to 6 months. And here you can get it in potentially 1 month to 6 weeks, okay? Now, realistically, we always tell people when we're working with them, it's 2 months. And that just has to do, I'm going to go through lots of details with you on how the process works so you can understand it. And then we can kind of see from there. And if you have questions, you can contact us. We're happy to help you with it. So yeah, it's basically the fastest. Now, it turns out it's also pretty price competitive. It's certainly not the cheapest option, but it's within the margin. In particular, it's not necessarily so cheap if you're an individual, but if you are a family, then it is cheaper. There's some other cool things about it, like you can do this name change thing. The name change costs a bunch extra, but it's an option that some people like to take advantage of. Then you can also take advantage of having them bring you the passport and do this oath ceremony thing where you are, so that's also easier. It works out pretty well. So yeah, these are all kind of parts of the consideration. So how does it work? So there is really an initial process, which is called the FIU screening. So FIU is usually Financial Intelligence Unit, and they have this all over the place, okay? So most of the programs in the world, you will have some sort of an FIU type due diligence clearing, okay? And so at this point in time, you're going to submit basic information about yourself, mainly your passport, police clearance, and a copy of your resume, okay? This process, you will also pay, it's about $2,500. Technically, the fee is, $2,000, but then it has to get converted to their currency, and then there's a few extra fees to get it done quickly, okay? So bottom line, what we always just tell people is $2,500, there you're good to go, get started. So that is going to get you through your initial due diligence. That initial due diligence process is going to take probably about a week, okay? This is where they run you through the Interpol databases, the EU databases, the whatever different databases to make sure that you're not, a known terrorist, etc., right? Provided you make it through there, and most people will, right? The biggest reason why you might have a problem with that is if you have some sort of criminal record. So if you have some sort of a criminal background, depending on the background, definitely contact us in advance. We'll talk about it. We'll see if it's going to be an issue. We can talk to the people who are in the Financial Intelligence Unit for you to avoid wasting any time or money on that issue, okay? So that's number one. From there, you're ready to enter stage 2, okay? This is where you make a payment. Now, you can make a payment of 25% or 100%, all right? Now, there's a reason why you may want to make 100% payment, and this is something that maybe some people won't explain to you, but it's really important, and you can do it either way. It doesn't particularly matter for whether you get it, but it will matter for how fast you get it, okay? So let's talk about the fees, because this is where it becomes relevant, because you have to pay 25% of whatever the fee is, okay? So the basic fee, minimum that you're gonna pay, is going to be $130,000, okay? That's their basic rate. And it's a government mandated thing. Your funds are going to go into an escrow account. The government is going to verify that everything matches. So it doesn't matter how it goes, that's your fee that you're going to have to pay, okay? Now, a few nuances about that. For a couple, it's $150,000. Now that's not going to be your only cost. You're going to have some added costs on top of this in terms of consultation and in terms of the oath ceremony, in terms of there's like a passport fee and some other stuff, okay? So your real cost typically is around $150,000 for a single individual, okay? So basically just assume that it's 150, 155,000, although that does typically include they will come and visit you to do the ceremony. So you can save a little bit of money by if you actually want to go to Vanuatu. Of course, the flip side of the question is, would you really want to go to Vanuatu? Good question, right? If you're doing a name change, it's required that you go, okay? So that's a whole other conversation. But for now, what you're going to do is you're going to do a deposit of the government portion. So this is the way the government portion basically works. It's $130,000 for the first person, $150,000 for a couple, then any child, or you can actually bring your parents. So the children, I believe they can be under 26, are $15,000 each, and parents who can, I think they're over 55, can come under your application as well. They're also, I believe, $15,000. Okay, so if you've got a family of 28, it's a big bill. If you've got a family of 4, you know, you can do the math, it's about 180,000, right? So that's just this. Oh, by the way, in stage 1, where we're talking about the FIU, one of the advantages, or there's a couple advantages of Vanuatu over, say, a bunch of these Caribbean passports, okay? Number 1 is that the due diligence process is easier to go through, okay? So there's something to be said that when you're doing some of the programs, they make it more of a hassle. Now, you might say, hey, look, that seems more reputable, seems more, you know, valid, etc. Sure, you know, from an optics standpoint, again, we're talking about marketing, how they brand their product, right? There's an image thing that goes on there. On the flip side, it's nice to have something that's easier, right? It's easier, it's nice to have a process, and you're gonna notice this at stage 1 and stage 2 of the process, okay? So anyway, it's fairly straightforward. People might ask, you know, are there countries that are banned? People from Iraq, from Syria, from Iran, from all these places can all go through the Vanuatu program, okay? So that's great. Another thing that's interesting is funds, when you transfer them, can come from a third party, okay? So why is this useful? This is useful because maybe you're living in a country where there's capital controls of some sort, right? And it's hard to get money out, but you can have somebody else make a payment on your behalf, okay? So this is potentially useful for you, all right? So that's, you can figure it out and see as works for you, but the point is the funds don't have to come from your account, which is not true of some other places, right? In some other places, the money has to come from you to there. It doesn't have to be the case when it comes to Vanuatu. So you're gonna do this transfer at least 25%. There's no point in doing 50%, by the way. It's either 25% or 100%. You'll understand why in a minute. To the escrow account for the program. So basically the way that this works is there's agents in Vanuatu. In order to be an agent in Vanuatu, and everybody, basically anybody who provides this service works with one of these agents, okay? They have to be a Vanuatu-born person. The government has them licensed, and then they provide them with this escrow account, okay? So you wire the funds into the escrow account, the government can see this escrow account, and great, that's what's gonna happen. You're gonna do that. Now this is gonna approve you to go on to stage 2. Stage 2 is the Citizenship Committee meeting, okay? The Citizenship Committee meets the last Friday of every month, and this is why I'm saying how fast you can do it really depends. You can just kind of figure math in terms of your time frames is like this. It's gonna take about a week to do your FIU analysis, right? Then from the time you wire that money, it's probably gonna take maybe up to a week for the funds to land in the account, right? So if you missed that Citizenship Committee meeting, well then you're waiting until the next cycle, okay? So then it can take you a little bit longer. If you're early enough, then you're good, okay? At this Citizenship Committee meeting, they're gonna look at, hey, they paid the $25,000, here is their application. The application is gonna be put together in that time, and this is gonna involve, you know, a list of your assets and some different things like that. It's a fairly streamlined process, so it's not a super tough process compared to some other countries out there, right? Then you're next going to have, of course, the FIU clearance, right? They're gonna review this, they're going to approve you. So you actually get approved right at that meeting, which is pretty cool, right? This is a very fast process, right? In theory, you could have sent your money to do the FIU process, say by early/middle of the month, right? Let's say you were like the 7th of the month, right? You get your approval back from FIU, you wire your 25,000, you get that into the bank, and you go into, or your application, you don't actually go there, but your application goes into the citizenship approval meeting, they approve you there, and now it takes about a week-ish, technically it's a few days to 10 days to get your citizenship documents prepared and your passport, okay? So it's a streamlined process. It's one of the faster processes out there, okay? Now, if you didn't, this is why you would want to pay your 100%, okay? Is if you get approved at that citizenship meeting, but you've only paid your 25%, then they go and they say, okay, great, we're approving you to send your other 75%. Well, now you have to wait for the next cycle until the next citizenship meeting comes up to get your approval, okay? So they're approving you for stage 1 and they're approving you for stage 2. So that's a big deal. Now, some of the nuances that people will talk about in terms of this is like, okay, why pay up front if I'm not approved? The answer is at that point in time, if you're through the FIU and you've got the application together, first of all, the funds are going to escrow, but second of all, you should be approved at that point in time, okay? Now, the other thing that I did note is there's a bunch of extra fees, okay? Realistically, these extra fees are gonna cost you about $20,000 to $25,000, depending a little bit on whether they're going to come to you or you're gonna go to them. So quite simply, you know, they have to pay for flights for people to fly from Vanuatu to wherever you are. They have to pay for hotels for those people. They have to pay for, you know, they have to pay like a wage for those people and so on and so forth, right? So anyway, all in, you figure for a single person, it's about 150 to 155,000, okay? And then on top of that, if you throw in that you do a spouse, is going to be an extra 20,000, and then each other dependent is going to be an extra 15,000. That's basically what your costs are, okay? And I mean, honestly, whether you're plus or minus 5,000 is not the biggest deal. If you want a name change, it's usually going to cost you $10,000 to $12,000 extra, okay? So it'll cost you a little bit extra for that to go through the process. In that case, what happens is you go to Vanuatu. By the way, it'll be that little bit extra, but you'll typically save a little bit on the actual cost of, because you don't have to pay for them to come to you, right? So, you know, the realistic cost is going to be slightly less. Anyway, so you're going to fly down there, you'll have gotten your citizenship approval, etc. Then they'll do a name change, then they'll issue the documents again based on the new information. Okay, so that's something that some people like to have. Obviously, if you're having family members, a bunch of people changing their name, then, you know, you have to pay accordingly. So yeah, that's pretty much the deal. I think that it's interesting in a couple different ways. Number one is it's a pretty easy program. Like we said, the source of funds can come from third parties, which is unusual for a bunch of these programs. People from virtually anywhere are available, and you don't have to worry about, can I get a visa to come there or something like that, because they can come to you, so that's also nice. It's super quick. If you have a family, it can be a lot cheaper than many of the Caribbean options, okay? So there are some unofficial programs that definitely cost less, right? Arguably some that are better in that sense that cost less. Unofficial programs, you know, it's a whole other ballgame. But for the official programs, it's one of the cheapest options for people who have one of these larger families, okay? And then the fact that you can bring your parents, that's also cool. So that's good. It's quite quick, as I said, that's nice. And so let's talk about a little bit the quality of the passport. So it's got, at the moment, 130 countries that you can travel to visa-free, which includes the EU, but not, I don't believe it includes UK and Ireland. It doesn't include China, but it does include Russia. Japan is not included, Brazil is not included, Mexico is not included, Canada, the US, Australia, and New Zealand, of course, are not included. So, you know, it's not the quality of, say, an EU passport. It's comparable with a bunch of them in the Caribbean. It's not as good as some of them. The typical thing in the Caribbean is that you would get UK, and you won't get that here. It is maybe a little bit better for kind of the Southeast Asia business hub sort of centers. Some of the programs I've seen, I don't remember the official or the unofficial ones, but some of them didn't include Singapore. This includes Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, etc. So that region, it's very good for. And yeah, so it's a mediocre passport, right? It gives you okay, but not amazing visa-free travel. For some people, you know, if you have a Nigerian passport right now, then it's an amazing improvement. It's going to open up a lot of the world to you. If you've got an EU passport, or even like, you know, if you had Montenegrin citizenship or something right now, you know, how much you're going to get is not going to be, you know, there might be 1 or 2 countries that you've already got that they don't have, and 1 or 2 that they have that you don't have. It's not a really meaningful difference. So anyway, that's a summary of the Vanuatu Citizenship by Investment program, what I would describe as the fastest citizenship by investment. And it's really, when we say citizenship by investment, we really mean citizenship by donation, right? The money's, you're donating the money to the government. But that's okay. If you have questions, if you like help, if you're interested in that, reach out to us. We're happy to help you. And I will look forward to seeing you guys on the next video.